All right, I'm going to call to order the November 12th Village Board meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody. Trustee Lancy, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will be on a tape delay this evening, so there will be no call-in. I'll open up the floor to public comments at this time. We would ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes and give us your name and address, please.
I would like to comment.
Okay.
Well,
My
somebody's
name is
walking
Mike
up.
Kahn.
All right. There's a guy walking up behind you. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, you sure? I'll wait for you.
Richard Wohler, 20 Elm Street. I don't have any real comments tonight. I just wanted to ask one question. On the last regular meeting, October 22nd, there was a public notification that there was a $78,181.25 bond payment made. I've seen these on the agendas before, but I would just like to know what those bonds were originally issued for.
Let's see. One was they borrowed $400,000 to pave the streets. They borrowed, I believe, 300 and some odd thousand for the street sweeper. One of the bonds was like for the sewage treatment plant was like $1 million, and I'm not sure. But
This
the other
was an
one-
$800,000 bond, it said.
No,
They're-
they were all turned. They were bands
Together.
bond anticipation notes. They were all put into one
Is that all
bond.
it was in
Originally, it
there?
was like $1.2 million. It was 4 or 5 different bond anticipation notes, but you can only go out 5 years. After that, you have to
Oh.
make them into 30-year serial bonds. So it was a bunch of different things. I think actually paying for painting one of the water towers was still on there. Peter would probably
That's a
know
separate
more than
one.
anybody. There was.
Yeah,
Was it influent at the SDB relining water? I think the relining the water mains in Wilmer was off. $400 paving bond, it was $175 or $178,000 for the street sweeper. And the other one was the influent and centrifuge down at the SDB.
I would just like to, when you make large payments like that, try to show what they're for so people will know where their money's going.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Mr. Khan.
Hello, my name is Mike Kahn. I live at 610 Webster Road, which is the property directly across the street from the sewage treatment plant. Last August, I sent Mr. Cahill and the board a letter stating the problems I've been having with the sewage treatment plant. It was sent certified. I really hadn't heard anything from anybody until last night. On last Friday, they started mixing their leaves with their sewage, as they do every year, and the odor and the stench was unbearable. It started in the 90s when somebody came around saying that they were composting on the site. What they said they had was a pile of leaves in the rear, and they would use a backhoe to mix treated sewage into these leaves, and DEC told them they needed a permit. I didn't have any problems with that. But as time went on, within years, they had an acre of blacktop out front of the building, and they started bringing in 10-wheelers full of leaves and started composting with this big grader. Every year, it's a problem. I got real concerns about health. It's not an annoying smell. It's a choking, gagging smell. Last Friday, my wife called the plant, and John told her that in a few days we'll have it done and it'll start going away. During the summer, I saw John, the plant manager, cutting the trees along the roadside. These are 3 or 4 rows of mature trees. These trees are 30, 40 years old, and he's cutting all the lower branches off them. I said, John, what are you doing? I said, this buffer's been here for 30, 40 years. He says, I want it to look nice. And he cut all the branches off 6 feet tall. So this year, not only do I get the smell, I get the wind coming through there, and I get to see it. He's got it all covered with tarps and tires, which is really great to look at every morning. Over the years, I've called DEC, I've talked to the health department. It's some of the remedies they give me. They're gonna put perfume on a pile. They're gonna cover it with plastic. They'll make sure the temperatures stay the same. They'll keep a close watch on the temperatures. They'll only turn the piles when the wind is just right, so it doesn't really annoy me. And all of this is nonsense. It doesn't really help. It's 2 or 3 weeks of nastiness in our neighborhood, and then they have to turn the piles every once in a while, and then in the spring they shovel it out of there and send it out. Last night, you called me and offered me a remedy of putting a fence up. That's another joke. How's a fence gonna stop the spread of the smell and all that bacteria? It's just a joke.
Well, the purpose of that suggested remedy was to, when the branches were cut down, obviously the wind through there will increase, and the fence would act as a break. But since I've talked to you, I've talked to Jake, and Jake has another resolution that he's gonna suggest as soon as you're through. I know it's difficult, and there's the 2 periods of that time of the year, you know, that we've been doing this for decades. It's permitted by the DEC, it's very closely regulated, and we will do the best we can do to keep that to a minimum. We'll keep it covered. When there's a heavy west wind, we'll do our best not to turn it. But when you live in that proximity to a sewage treatment plant, in something that we've been doing for decades, I don't understand. We're very limited as to, you know, what we can and can't do.
It's not the sewage treatment plant, it's the
composting.
composting.
I understand
As
that.
far as closely regulated, I talked to Ian the other day, and he says you meet all the qualifications.
You talked to who, sir?
Ian from DEC.
Yes, sir.
He was the one that inspected it on Friday.
Right.
I talked to Ian's supervisor today, and he didn't even know if the covers were part of the regulations for these. So these guys don't really do anything but put a stamp on whatever you're doing over there.
Well, he was on site.
Yeah, I know he was.
So he did.
You know,
Take a look at
and
it.
last year I talked to somebody over there, and they said they haven't been down there in years. You know? Well, this has been going on too long. You know, everything you do over there really has no good effect. I mean, I was over there a couple of years ago, and you had that loader, that old loader with rubber tires going from the bottom of the hill at the drying beds and carrying sludge all the way up the hill to the leaves. And as it bounced up the hill, it's slobbering stuff all over, and then they're dumping it on the piles. And I went over there and said, what are you doing? It smells terrible. He said, well, I gotta get it done. And within a couple weeks after that, they put a gate and a lock on the gate. So these people over there, which I hold the town and the town board and the sewage treatment plant all equal.
Yeah, this is a village, just
The village.
for clarity, yeah.
You people just every year just whitewash this and let me and my neighbors live in this mess over there. You know?
Well, I'll say.
The town of Webster has composting. And they don't have it in a residential neighborhood, and they don't use sewage in their composting. Anyways, you people need to do something about this other than put up a fence or put some more perfume on this, because I'll tell you, the neighbors are pretty upset over there, and they're not gonna sit back like they have in years gone by.
Well, as far as the actual employees at the sewage treatment plant, I've spent quite a few hours up there. And I will say this, that they are probably 3 of the most conscientious and best workers that we
So
have. Okay, so I just, let me just finish. Now, Mr. Khan, I'd just like you to know that the sewage plant operator, Mr. Carnavelli, takes pride in that sewage treatment plant, significant amount of pride. He likes everything to look aesthetically pleasing, and he does. The buildings are all painted. He puts flower beds in every year. He keeps the grass mowed. And the reason he cut those branches down were for aesthetics, okay? He didn't do it maliciously, and I understand that it allows the wind flow to go through there. I understand that.
So a grown man did it, not realizing what he was doing.
He did
was
not-
cut down to 30 years worth of a natural berm, so it'll look nicer.
Yes.
Okay. Was he wanting to look nicer when he was bringing the sludge with that old loader up the hill and it was slopping all over?
Well,
And then he'd go down to the bottom and pick up another load and bring it up? Was that for looks?
I wasn't
You know?
there, but I guarantee you this,
Well,
if there was, I can guarantee you this, that if that did happen, knowing Mr. Carnavelli and the employees up there, I guarantee you it got sprayed off.
Well, I got a picture of it, so I can
Well,
guarantee
I'm not
that.
disputing that, I'm just saying, I'm not disputing the fact that it probably happened. If there's liquid in there and you're bouncing on a loader, sure, some of it's gonna spill. My
Well-
point is that they are conscientious enough up there to get a hose out and spray that down.
Well, you got a real problem over there, and it doesn't seem like you realize it yet.
Well, is there anything that we can look into to improve any part of it, or?
Well, one of the
I mean,
things.
I understand what it is.
Yeah, one of the things that we did look into is, as the mayor brought up, was looking at a fence because of the concern that was raised because the limbs were trimmed up. It allowed more wind through there and allowed, aesthetically, you could see it, and it allowed more wind through there and could contribute to it. So we looked at a fence as a way to mitigate that, to provide a buffer and a
Show
windbreak,
at least the
as
west
was
wind, yeah.
discussed. But, obviously, that's a considerable expense, and if it's not gonna satisfy anything,
Then,
it's something
I know.
that we could probably look at. I've also looked into other options. I'm not a big fan of the slats that you put inside a chain link fence. I think they look good for 1 year, and then they don't look very good after that. One of the things I was looking into today was different types of ivies that can climb and give a natural buffer, stop the wind, and
That would be better.
be pleasing to the eye as well, and provide a
Okay, I would
correct.
like to talk. I'm Papa
Come on.
Khan.
Sure.
You haven't done anything to that fence in 30 years, not a coat of paint or anything.
Look it, this place smells. And even today, Friday, when my grandchildren came over on Friday, my son-in-law and my daughter pulled in the driveway, and we went out there excited to see them, and the kids are yelling, "Oh my God, they're about to throw up." So am I throwing up. I go inside the house, okay? And my daughter and my son-in-law leaves because she says, "Mom and Dad, that is a chemical smell, and it's very dangerous to your health." And it definitely is. For the last couple of days, I go out to my truck and get in my truck very quickly so I don't have to smell that odor outside. I pull out to the end of the driveway and it's still blowing in my truck. This is not acceptable, and we are not tolerating this any
How
longer.
do you expect people to
There's
live
no
like
way.
this down there?
You've
You
gotta
get to
get
go
that
home
out.
every night. You could go to the plant and then leave.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm sitting here to tell you, you've got to get rid of that plant or else. We
That compost
are
is-
not stopping. We are not stopping at this
Yeah.
tonight. You're going to be, you
You
will
would-
be in the lawsuit. Every one of you are going to be named in it, okay? So
Relax.
we're going to be spending a lot of money, and so are you. That compost has to go. We can't live here.
You would
You're
push it-
depreciating our house
Okay.
by $50,000. It's already
Okay.
depreciated. The plate, there's no way. We cannot live like this.
You've been pushing us aside for years.
We
You-
just keep being nice to you.
John tells me we're the only ones that complain. He tells Jackie, "Oh, Jackie, you're the only one that complains." And then he tells Brian on the south side, "Oh, Brian, you're the only one that complains."
I've been at
You know?
all my neighbors. I have a petition signed tonight. I've been to all my neighbors and I have it signed. You have to do something about this. Every neighbor, no, they
Are you
couldn't make
prepared
it
to
here
present that
tonight.
petition to us
Yeah.
tonight?
I
Give it
have
to
it.
us. Yes, give it to us.
I have one copy.
That's all I have is
Do you want
one
to
copy.
make some copies
We'll make
tomorrow and
copies.
drop it off?
Yeah, I
Sure.
can do that.
All right,
Will you do
Absolutely.
anything about it, though?
we will definitely look into it, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
If you have a petition.
Okay,
Well, thank
because
you.
we are not stopping.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
thank you, have a good evening. Mr. Elder.
is there any possibility of composting at the well field? Just
I
a thought.
talked to about that today. I actually talked to somebody about
That's
that
not what I was gonna
today.
say, but it
I would
just,
certainly say anything's possible, but you have a lot of, there's trucking costs, obviously.
sure,
A lot more time, it would be a lot more expensive, and there's a lot more houses.
Yeah.
true,
Um,
there's the same problem, okay.
Yeah, I
That's-
mean,
yeah.
it's a lot more
Yeah.
houses just west of it.
No, that's true,
Um,
good point. I just suddenly popped in my head that there's another possibility, that's
Yeah.
all. Okay. Anyways, getting what I was gonna say, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I missed a few very interesting village board meetings, and the last one caught my attention most. At that meeting, the supervisor, a public official of this town, asked that this board turn off cameras to ensure that this community is not embarrassed by comments made at the open of the floor section of the meeting. The mayor, also a public official, at the following workshop supported such a view. The village board wisely turned down the idea at the last workshop, provided it seems that the discourse is civil. First, I'd like to caution you on defining civil discourse. What is it? I would ask you to review opinions of the Committee on Open Government expressly saying that if you allow public comment, then you cannot restrict the content of that comment. I assume within limits of vulgarity. Specifically, see the following opinions, 3171 and 4691. And please permit me to quote. Assuming that the Board of Trustees and/or the mayor as presiding officer permit those who wish to speak to do so for a particular period of time, each person who wishes to do so must be given equal opportunity to do so. Similarly, if the board and/or mayor permit positive comments concerning the operation of village government, they must also offer equal opportunity to enable those in attendance to offer negative or critical comments. Second, I'd like to address the issue of the $3 million grant. The argument being forwarded right now is that televised public comment is offensive to some, is embarrassing, casts the community in a poor light, and endangers the grant. But on several points, this argument is in error. First, with the strong tradition of free speech in this country, it may be more damaging for the judges of the grant to understand that you are willing to abridge freedom of expression in exchange for $3 million. The exact text of the workshop minutes show this, quote, as long as a competition is going on, then the public comment should not be televised for a while. Fortunately, you didn't do that. I know none of you actually publicly support the idea that $3 million is worth abridging free speech, but there it is. That's a quote from the minutes. Furthermore, if this community cannot have members that oppose and challenge government, then what kind of community do we really have? It appears that the America's Best Communities Grant Committee does believe in diverse viewpoints. A quote from their criteria is, quote, brings together diverse constituents that comprehensively represent the community to contribute to the visioning, planning, and implementation processes. The idea that is being forwarded here is not diverse views, but one that conform. I would also like you to consider what rights you actually have to demand the cameras be turned off. The media is often considered the only check on government, the one place residents can get another point of view. The public comment section at local board meetings only allows for 5 minutes per resident, but the members of the boards, the government, have unlimited time. Residents really have no way to counter what a public official says, say on cable channel 12, for instance, except by directing comments to the town or village boards. Only these few minutes from the media give a different perspective. I remember, in fact, when the current mayor had to be thrown out of the meeting with police escort. I asked that the cameras be turned off and was rebuked by Mike Auger for directing a member of the press to limit coverage. He was right, I was wrong, I never asked for that again. Also, being 2015, with web-based media and really good video cameras, these meetings can be taped by anyone and posted online. So what good does it really do to turn off the cameras when you really don't have control over either the cameras or how the information is disseminated? Putting your best foot forward as a government starts with respecting the First Amendment and all that goes with it. You may not like the comments, you may not like the people that make them, or the points that are brought up. You might not agree with how the comments are said. I've been right where you are right now with members of the public commenting over and over again at each meeting. But I came to the conclusion, mostly because of that gentleman, that limiting public comment in any way hurt the board far more than the person making the comments. I would urge you to resist the natural inclination to make it personal and to listen as much as you can. Our community is actually enriched by diverse viewpoints, not denigrated by them. Thank you.
Just as a point of clarity in law, Mr. Elder, village board meetings are specifically to conduct board business. And if we decided to put the public portion of the meeting at the end, we would not be impeding or impinging upon your First Amendment right whatsoever, okay? We would afford you the opportunity, the public, the opportunity to speak. We do not legally have to do that. We would never take that away. We may move that agenda item to the end of the meeting. That's our option. You did the same thing.
I did.
And with respect to
But we talked
impeding upon someone's First Amendment right, and the meeting that you continue to reference regarding my being asked to leave the meeting, that specifically, that meeting, you specifically tried to impede what I spoke about. And subsequently, you were called by a number of people in the village, and the board changed that policy active the next meeting. So I do understand where you're coming from. I would never do that. I would never say to the public that you can only speak about what is on that night's agenda. We've never done that, nor will we. I will compliment you with respect to your presentations. I don't always agree with what you say, but you do so as a professional and as a gentleman, which is not always the case with other people. There's nothing wrong with people coming up and disagreeing, but they don't need to be as disagreeable, mean-spirited, and throwing out accusations that are baseless and unproven, okay? If you want to come up and comment, take a specific stance that is opposite ours, it always helps your case with respect to credibility if you have supporting documentation. If you get up there and you accuse a member of the board of doing something based upon a rumor, you make yourself look foolish. That's just my opinion. Anyone else this evening?
I've made some copies for the board. Eric Reynolds, 64 Kircher Park.
Kircher Avenue now.
Yes. That's for another day. So tonight, I reluctantly have to speak to Mr. Nesbitt's address at the last meeting.
Listen, let me interrupt you for 1 second.
Sure.
In that this is from what I'm reading here, seems to be a bit of back and forth between yourself and the supervisor. Would it not be more appropriate for you to call the supervisor, set up a meeting with him in his office, and have a discussion there, rather than standing up here and talking about that? I'm just
That could be an additional option. The fact that I was called out, called a liar in front of the village board, I feel that I need to set the record straight as to what was said in front of the village board and to the village board. So what I've given you is a transcript of Mr.
I just have a question.
Certainly.
Shouldn't the public comment be more about village business? And
So
specific to the items that are relevant to the village as opposed to yourself?
So I think that limiting what we can say here, Mr. Cahill just said, just minutes ago, that he wouldn't limit to what's on the agenda.
I think the point that Mr. Byers is making here is that I don't think there's anyone in this community that doesn't know that you're having an issue or dispute with Mr. Nesbitt regarding a conversation that I had with Mr. Nesbitt.
Right, which is village business.
You did make a statement that, was not true.
What statement was that?
when you said that I had a conversation with Mr. Nesbitt about taking over the sewage treatment plant.
I never said that.
Okay, well,
That's
fine.
So this
That's
is
fine.
exactly why I want to do
That's
this
fine.
here. Because
Okay.
this has been tossed around here in this meeting, in this venue, and I want to address it. So, if I could start, I'd appreciate it. So, what I've given you is a transcript of Mr. Nesbitt's speech at last meeting, and I want to pick out several of the problems that I have with that. First, quote, "It has been reported here by a village resident that Mayor Cahill and I had a conversation about the town taking over the village treatment plant." That's a bald-faced lie. See the recordings of September 24th, 2015, and October 22nd village board meetings. All it would have taken is a little research. Never said that. 2, I am here tonight to tell you that no such conversation ever took place, and the village resident reporting this conversation is grossly in error. The exact conversation that Mayor Cahill and I was this. The mayor asked if the town's treatment plant could handle sewage from the village, to which I told him that I did not know, and that we are presently doing a study of the plant for efficiencies, and I will incorporate that into the study. Okay, then, did the conversation take place or did it not take place? What reason would Mr. Cahill have to ask such a leading question if he was not at least toying with the idea of moving to have the town take over the village's sewage? Mr. Cahill has admitted to this, he's looking into this in the video of the October 22nd, 2015 village board meeting. And why would Mr. Nesbitt agree to incorporate Mr. Cahill's query if he was not at least toying with the idea of taking over the village sewage treatment? 3, I find it seriously obnoxious that a village resident can stand up here and pronounce that he knows what I said in a private conversation. Now, I get upset when others want to put words in my mouth that I did not say just to make themselves look important. Who exactly is putting words in whose mouth? And who is trying to make themselves look important by fabricating lies about what I said in order to justify their involvement? See the previously mentioned recordings. 1996 through 1998, I begged this village board to sign a water contract which would give the village 25 cents per gallon on every gallon of water that was used in the town. Really? Monroe County Water Authority rates are 0.00271 cents per gallon. And I suspect that 20 years ago, costs were less than 0.0025 cents per gallon or less. So I called lie, 2 orders of magnitude off. All that would have taken was a little research. And I have given you the Monroe County Water Authority rates page. 5, so I've called this phone number twice, left my name and number. No one has gotten back to me. I wonder why. I've reviewed those voicemails. Mr. Nesbitt never asked for a response. And given the tone and content of the messages, no sane person would have returned those calls. 6, it says that they also have a board of directors, but I don't know who that is because they don't print it. We have spoken in my capacity as chair of the Webster Citizens Action League. In fact, in a conversation I had with you, I gave you my personal cell phone number and asked you to call me if you had any questions or concerns. 7, in closing, I would like to say that I watch the village board meetings when I can, and to me and other residents that speak to me, they are embarrassing. I will suggest to the village board that going forward, you have open to the floor after the cameras are off. Some village residents are playing to the cameras for attention, and I would not give them the forum to do so. I would still have open to the forum after the cameras are off, so they can make their points to the village board and their right to free speech. The reason for taking this approach is simply because at this time, the town of Webster, Village of Webster, Chamber of Commerce, and the BID are working very hard to compete for the Best America Communities Award of $3 million. And we have judges from this organization looking at this community right now for the likes and dislikes of our community as they judge us for $3 million award. We are not presenting our best foot forward every 2 weeks here at Village Hall with this nonsense and misinformation going on. Thank you. Heil mein Führer Nesbitt. Let's pin the blame. His true intentions are coming through here. He needs that $3 million to balance his budget and is not afraid of trampling on anyone or anything to try and secure it, including constitutionally protected human rights. Wow. Is this guy a Republican or a fascist? That's my time. Thank you.
Well, I got to take exception to that last paragraph. I think it was, once again, true to form with you, Mr. Reynolds, as being very mean-spirited, which is consistent with most of the things that you come up here and talk about. On numerous occasions, you have come up here and you have treated members of the public badly. You have made accusations that are absolutely not true. And as far as I'm concerned, sir, it's not necessary. You have an issue with Mr. Nesbitt.
I never had
You
an
need,
issue
you,
with
you,
Mr.
you should,
Nesbitt
you should pick
until
up the
he came up and
phone,
attacked
sir,
me
you
publicly.
should pick up the phone and set up a meeting with him. I know Mr. Nesbitt, I know for a fact that he'd be more than happy to sit down with you, but this back and forth in front of the cameras needs to stop. It really does.
It's about to happen
Okay?
again. He
All right.
spent 8 minutes
Okay.
trashing me on November 4th on
I don't recall Mr. Nesbitt really ever calling you a Führer or a fascist.
Well,
That rhetoric is not necessary whatsoever, sir.
Obviously, you don't know what Führer means.
Yeah, I do.
What does it mean?
Okay? That's enough, Mr. Reynolds. Have a seat.
leader.
Have a seat, sir.
It means leader.
Have a seat.
Good evening, Ron Nesbitt, 1075 Railroad Crossing or 1000 Ridge Road, whichever one you'd like to pick. And I don't like this either, John, going back and forth. But the reason why I'm here is that my character is at stake and so is yours. Okay?
Yeah.
And that means a lot to me, a lot. I was here in front of the village board on October 22nd, and a lot has happened in the last 3-week period. Because I only live 5 minutes from the village, down North Avenue, to Orchard Street, to Holt Road. By the time I got to Holt Road, my phone was ringing from the leader of the Republican Party, Peter Elder. I got lectured for making a presentation to the village board which he thought was inappropriate for me to make. Okay? My credibility is on the line here. Mr. Reynolds made a statement on September 24th about John and I and a conversation that we had that is not true. Shortly thereafter, I became a YouTube star for removing a deface campaign sign of mine on Kirchard Park. I don't at all regret doing it. But the real reason I'm back tonight is to once again prove the mistruths and lies being spread around about a conversation Mayor Cahill and I had about the village wastewater treatment plant. I want you to listen to Mr. Reynolds on CD from the September 24th village meeting where he clearly states, "It came to my attention last week that Mayor Cahill has been speaking to Supervisor Nesbitt considering the town taking over the effluent from the sewer treatment plant on a full-time basis." This conversation never took place, Mr. Reynolds. Never. And when are you going to admit the fact that you made a mistake and you impugned the character of the mayor and myself? Play the tape, please.
Eric Reynolds, 64 Kircher Park. It came to my attention last week that Mayor Cahill has been speaking to Supervisor Nesbitt concerning the town taking over the effluent from the sewage treatment plant on a full-time basis. I understand that there's some problems down there right now, but apparently I understand that the board didn't know anything about him talking to the supervisor concerning turning over the sewage treatment to the town.
Thank you.
I had the opportunity.
Now, Mr. Mayor, did you and I ever have a conversation considering the town taking over the effluent from the sewer treatment plant on a full-time basis?
Absolutely not.
Right. Now again, the conversation that took place was the mayor asked me if the town's treatment plant could handle the village effluent. I answered, I don't know, and we're going to do a study that was authorized by the town board in August. And that would be included in the study. Mr. Reynolds, when you came to that workshop in September, the authorization for the town to do that study was already done by the town board. It was just an add-on. Now, I hope we all know the truth, and we can finally put this thing to bed. Now, I spoke last meeting about the mistruth of the Webster Citizen Action League that are putting out on the internet, to which Mr. Reynolds just admitted he was a member along with Mr. Out. Just this week, on November the 10th, they published again, acting unilaterally and without the board approval, Cahill has caused the town to initiate a study on whether the town could handle the village sewage volume. That's not truthful.
Where was it published?
Webster Action Committee.
I don't believe so.
It's on,
It's on the website, sir.
I read it.
Right on the website. Go see Carolyn Nichols, whoever she may
I
be.
will review that.
Okay?
Is it Nichols or is it Reynolds?
I don't know who put it up. But it's not true, sir. You can't put stuff up that's not true. That's not a true statement. The initiation for the study was done by the town board way previous to you showing up at any meeting. Okay? Then we'll go on farther.
That isn't what I said.
This is what's said here. You talked about the Webster Action Committee, am I correct?
Webster Citizens
Are
Action
you a
League.
member of that committee?
Yes, I
Are you taking responsibility for the actions that
I
are?
will take responsibility.
It says, acting unilaterally and without board approval, Cahill has caused the town. He hasn't caused me anything. To initiate a study on whether the town could handle the.
Semantics now.
I'm
No,
not-
he's talking
Okay?
truth versus lies.
One thing and I'm
Because
done.
you would never have checked on whether you could take on the town's, or the village's effluent if Mr. Cahill had not come to you. Is that right?
No,
Would you have done
the
it?
study was already going on.
The study on the town, not on whether the village could,
I
you
said
could
I
handle
would
the village.
add it if
In
I
fact,
had a
yeah, the
conversation.
requirement of the study also includes a smart growth assessment, which has to be done whenever you do one of the studies for an engineering planning grant for a sewage treatment plant. Part of the smart growth assessment would have you consider the flows for the entire community. So it would have been part of it no matter
Would have been
what.
part of the study.
But Mr. Nesbitt actually said that he would include that in the study.
I did when you were there that night.
Yes.
I there.
So
Okay.
there you go.
No,
Him
no,
coming
no,
and talking to you
no.
Made you say
Pause.
that
No,
statement.
no, no. That's not what you said. That's not what you
I
print.
don't
And
feel safe
here's,
talking about this back and
here's
forth.
the point.
I'd
Okay.
like this done.
Here's the point,
Jeez.
all right? Mr. Nesbitt has come in here and he has pointed out
My chair.
untruths that have been stated by Mr. Reynolds. He is pointing out truths that are untruths that are on the Webster Citizens Action
And I
League
have done the same
website
things with
on a consistent basis. Essentially, that website is nothing more than an I Hate Mayor Cahill website. The litany of lies that have been on that website for probably at least 8 months. I can't even read that website anymore because of the mean-spirited lies that are on there. And then Mr. Reynolds comes to these meetings and makes baseless accusations almost on a regular basis. So, you know, we afford you the opportunity to do these things, but at some point, you're gonna get called out to be the person that doesn't really back up your statements with facts. And that's where we are. And it's an embarrassment. It's sad that it has come to this, and I understand and I empathize with Supervisor Nesbitt, because when you call a public official's credibility into question, you got to expect that somebody's going to, at some point, we're going to call you to the floor and say, listen, you said this is not true, you said this is not true, you said this is not true. And when you come up here, as you did one meeting, and accuse me as mayor of telling our code enforcement officer not to worry about doing his official job regarding a business opening up in the village, which was a blatant lie, which was corrected or corroborated by the code enforcement officer himself, in my opinion, you have zero credibility. And then to go on and say that, accuse me, all right, of bringing corruption into the village with no substantiation whatsoever, no documentation whatsoever. It's just absolutely unacceptable that you would do that. And you don't deny you didn't do it, because you did. You said it. It's on camera. It's on the website. Anybody can go there, and that's just the way. And that's just unacceptable. That's just unacceptable, Mr. Reynolds. And that's it. Okay.
Can I just finish?
If you're gonna call
Yeah.
me out, I'll call you.
Go
I
ahead.
just want to finish. The second statement here from the Webster Citizens Action Committee was, his conversation with the town was tantamount to asking the town to assume the village's sewer volume and closing the plant. It's not even close to being accurate. That's not even close.
Why
His
would you
conversation with the town was tantamount to asking the town to assume. He never asked the town to assume it. We never had that conversation.
That is what the
Mr. Reynolds,
investigation was.
Mr. Reynolds, that's enough.
He
Okay?
never.
He's talking to me.
He's talking
No,
to
I'm
me.
not. I'll talk to you.
He's talking to me.
Talking to us.
His conversation with the town was tantamount to the town assuming the village is sewer volume and closing the plant. We never had that conversation, John.
No, we did not.
And that's what the whole thing is.
Right.
I wouldn't have been up here unless those statements were not made on the 24th of, September. In the September meeting that you were not at that night.
Right.
So Mr. Byrick's chaired that committee that night. I was sitting home watching on TV, and I heard this going on and on about you and me having this conversation and what you said and I said, and I'm like, it never happened. It never happened about you and I taking over the plant.
Right.
We've never had that discussion yet.
No.
Hasn't happened. So that's all I got to say. I don't want to come back here anymore. I don't like doing this.
I know.
Okay, I
I
don't.
know.
But I'm not gonna have my character stepped on, and if it is, I will fight back, and I tell you that right now. I don't care if it's a sign, I don't care what it is, I'm not gonna have my character fought back.
Well,
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in, and I will almost guarantee you that there will be continued misstatements on that website.
And I will address them if they are.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else this evening?
Certainly could have called me anytime.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move into village board business. Mr. Walter, you can put your sign down, please.
No, thank you. I'm permitted to have it if I want.
All right, first thing, we have a resolution to approve the minutes of the village board meeting. Mr. Walter, please be quiet. Please be quiet, sir.
I'm responding.
If he's not going to be quiet,
I'll respond. I don't have a problem with it, no.
all right, so we're going to look at the village board meeting minutes of October 22nd. Everybody have a chance to review these? Any questions, corrections, deletions, additions?
Not to the, not to those minutes, no.
Okay. In that case, I'll entertain a motion in a second to accept the minutes as drafted by our village clerk.
I'll make that motion.
No, I'll second it.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next is the Village Board Workshop of November 3rd. Trustee Byers will read the minutes for
President Mayor Cahill, Trustee Belkane, Trustee Ippolito, Trustee Byers, Trustee Lancet, and also our attorney, Don White. Village business, a discussion regarding compensation of exempt employees who work over the normal 40 hours a week took place. The board referred to a policy that was in place when the clerk and treasurer were hired, and now the policy is gone. The policy would have given an additional week vacation to the wording which was changed to the word will in 2012, changed to may in April of 2014, and then the policy was deleted in the policy manual of 2015. Attorney White said the policy was discretionary with the village board and not fair to the employees, and that is why it was eliminated. He suggested adjusting salaries in the next budget. Attorney White said it was possible to give 1 week vacation back for just one time and then eliminate it. Mayor Cahill agreed with Don White and said we will reinstate the policy for exempt employees, meaning the village clerk and treasurer, for this one time only, or for this budget year only, and then it is done. The Board of Trustees will vote on the item at the next board meeting because it is established the board would not vote at workshops unless absolutely necessary. The board also had a discussion related to sick time, personal time, vacation time for exempt employees. Trustee Ippolito talked about salaried employees calling in sick, but saying they're going to work from home, then the employee working from home, and he's not using a sick day. He continued and said if the employee calls in sick and is not going to work at home, then it should be considered a sick day. And then he would come in at a later time and make up the work. He said if an exempt employee is going to be sick or stay at home, then according to the policy, they should email the board members that they are sick, and that way it is on record. The next discussion regarding the Cricket Cell Tower termination agreement, Jake Swingley said he received a price from another company to eliminate the antennas on the tower, and it would cost about $10,000. Jake said he would reach out to Cricket, hopefully have enough information to make a determination for the next board meeting, and I don't know whether that's coming up. Mayor Cahill said that there is not enough room to erect the cell tower next to the north tank, and an AT&T rep agreed. We discussed the possibility of possibly putting a tower up to the north of the north tower where there is open land, and that could be used to erect a tower. There are lots of different options in terms of how this can be done, and those are going to be investigated. Mayor Cahill asked if board members would like to assist in trying to get the cell companies together, and Trustee Byers and Trustee Belkane said that they would both help with the project. The board then discussed the STP engineering study. Mayor Cahill said he would like to continue and have a further engineering study done in order to know the approximate amount of money which would be needed to invest in the sewer treatment plant in order to keep it running for the next 20 years. Mayor Cahill said he contacted Steve Metzger from Labella Engineering and asked how much it would cost to have another more comprehensive study done based on the study that they have already completed. Mr. Metzger said he would contact the mayor because he needed time to confer with other engineers that worked on the project and find out some answers on the cost and what would be involved. So that information will be passed on when Mayor Cahill receives further information. Mayor Cahill then discussed Policy 2.5, open to the floor section at the village board meetings. Said we have discussed this before. Everyone heard what Supervisor Nesbitt said about our public section of the meetings, which have become, as it was put, a sideshow and obnoxious. Mayor Cahill said he agrees with the supervisor, would like the public section moved from the beginning of the meeting to the end of the meeting. Trustee Ippolito said he would not want someone to wait 2.5 hours until the end of the meeting to voice their concerns about something. Trustee Belkane also agreed. Trustee Byers said Fairport meetings begin at 7, public comment, and then the televised meetings begin at 7:30. He also said during the America's Best Communities competition, he feels people are watching and meetings do look degrading. He said he would like public section to stay where it is, and people need to be constructive with their criticism. Don White, attorney, said maybe as long as the competition is going on, the public comment should not be televised for a while. It should be moved to 7 until competition is over. Jake Swingley said everyone should be courteous, respectful during the public comment section. Mayor Cahill said tone and delivery has to change at the next board meeting or we will have to change the public comments to 7 without cameras. Discussion on Policy 812 conferences ensued, and it was decided that the policy should be updated and looked at in a further agenda, along with the policy related to tuition reimbursements, as well as an unknown one on Social Security. So adjournment was made at 8:54 p.m. and
Very good discussions during that workshop.
Yes.
Any questions, additions, deletions?
I just noted in this paragraph, there's not enough room to erect the cell tower next to the south tank. It should be, it says the north tank.
Which paragraph?
Bottom of the first page.
Oh, yeah.
correct. I would agree with that. The one that currently
South tank
stands,
should be,
there's not
right.
enough room to put it in either in between or to the side of that.
Right.
Jose, you want to make that correction, please? All right, so I'll entertain a motion in a second to accept the minutes with the correction that the clerk will make on this.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill.
All right.
Motion passes.
All right, next we have the resolution to approve the claims and warrants, which are the bills. I went through the bills, didn't have any questions.
I did, and the questions I had, Christina answered, so I'm fine.
Darrell, anything? All right, I'll entertain a motion, a second to pay the bills then, as presented by the village clerk.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next, we have a resolution for authorization to pay Lou Engineers $3,913.45 for professional services rendered in September related to the North Avenue project, to be paid out of the North Avenue Reserve account.
Just to clarify, the reason this isn't just lumped in with the other claims and warrants is because under section 6C of the general municipal law, because this money is coming out of a specific capital reserve account for a specific project, the law requires that all expenditures have to be made only upon a specific authorization by the governing board. So I sort of
Yeah.
covered that part of the general municipal law.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion to second.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill.
Aye.
Motion passes.
For those who are out there, that resolution is to pay for services which had to do with, I believe, surveying
Right.
properties and along for the
Right-of-way.
right-of-way for the North Avenue project.
That was good.
Next is a resolution for authorization to pay Marathon Engineers $3,700 for professional services rendered in August and September 2015 related to the West Main Culvert Project, to be paid out of the West Main Street Culvert Project Reserve account. And these are the engineers that you hired just to make sure that what we're doing is, is sound, correct?
Yes, yeah.
Right, we talked about this summer, I believe.
It was this summer, and
We
if I recall,
authorized
I think
that.
there should be one more invoice coming after this, but it seems like it's gonna fall below. It was a $5,500
Right.
on the original estimate. I think we did $6,500 authorization.
Up to.
Up to $6,500,
Right.
and I believe that we make them in under that, so.
Right, and we'll be doing the seeker for that project later this evening.
Yeah.
And I know Will and yourself are anxious to get that project resolved, and I think that, I think we did it, appropriately as far as budgeting and holding off a year
Mhm.
to get more grant money, so it was less local tax dollars, so.
That's good.
That's why we created the reserve account for that. I think it was last year, I believe.
Yes,
Yeah.
last year was the first time it was funded.
Yeah. So I'll entertain a motion in a second to pay Marathon Engineers the $3,700.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee Byers,
Aye.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next, we have a resolution to approve Christina Lezak, treasurer, to switch HSA banks from HSA to ESL, the new bank through which the village will fund the employee health savings accounts. The reason for the switch is there are no fees associated with that, which is why we have decided to go to ESL. And I know that I believe John and yourself and Christina had conversations about this.
Yeah, so one of the things also is one of the other employees brought it up and said he banks at ESL and was asking them about it, and he noted that they had no fees.
Right.
Plus, it's a local
Yeah.
bank that you can run into if you had
Right.
questions
Yep.
with somebody, and now it's
Yep.
an 800 number and.
Right. Yeah, their headquarters are
Frustration.
in Arundecoit,
Yeah.
I think on Kings Highway maybe.
Kings Highway, yeah.
Well,
So-
ESL's headquarters, they're actually downtown now.
Oh, they are? They moved?
Well, they built a whole building there. They've
They
been down
built a
there
whole
about
huge-
Probably 5 years.
Where have I been? They used to be up on Kings Highway though.
They're still there,
Yeah.
but that's their
That's-
headquarters.
Headquarters
still
downtown?
is.
Nice.
Right across the
They've
street
grown.
from the Strong Museum.
So, question?
It was, the concern I had was our bank is Canadian National Bank, Canandaigua National Bank. And so I asked Christina to investigate that. I did not want to go around that. And so she did, and apparently the Canandaigua National Bank actually works through the HSA Bank. So we would not be eliminating the,
Right.
you know,
The fees.
fees by moving to them. So I would certainly be in, agreement with moving to ESL.
Right.
Okay, good.
Just to cover bases, I had to do that. So
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion a second to change to ESL.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Trustee
You guys
Byard?
mix it up a
Aye.
little bit.
Trustee
I got the
Lancy?
next, we do.
All right.
I kick them under the table.
Who's up next?
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Now we have a resolution which is subsequent to our conversation at the workshop that Darrell just reviewed regarding the one-time additional week of vacation for village clerk Josette Amalfi and Christine Lezak, the treasurer. And that is for this year only, and then there will not be an option going forward as the policy has changed. So I'll entertain a motion in a second.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
Trustee Lancy?
Aye.
Trustee Byard?
Aye.
Mayor Cahill?
Nay.
It doesn't pass.
Yes, it does. It passes. We have a quorum. All you need is a majority of the quorum.
That is true.
That is not true.
It is true.
Don says it is.
It is true.
I think so. I did.
It is. I called Nikon on it. It's true. If you have a quorum, all you need is a majority of the quorum for it to pass. It passes. You can call Nikon tomorrow if you'd like.
No?
Or just assume he's correct, because it
If
gives
if
you a
you
little bit
had
of.
5 members present, you need 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
Right.
You need a quorum to conduct business. A quorum is
It's 3.
And so long as you have a majority of the
That's correct.
quorum,
It can
you
still
can
pass.
still.
Okay.
That is correct.
You can still do business.
Yes.
You can still pass resolutions.
Yes.
I'll check it.
So mark that down as passing for right now.
Motion passes.
All right, thank you. Next, we have a secret determination for the West Ave, or West Main Culvert Project. This is Phase 2.
You know, on this, in Will's email, he indicated, and I agree with him, that this actually is a type 2 action.
Right.
Which,
I don't even,
so you don't really need, you don't
Part one.
need an EAF if it's a type 2.
right.
So I'm not sure why he prepared the EAF, but you.
I think he likes to cover his bases.
Well, that's
so,
fine, but
you know.
you don't need to go through
No.
all the questions and stuff at the end, because I think this,
That's
under the type 2 actions, this would be a replacement, rehabilitation, or reconstruction of a structure or facility in kind on the same site.
That is
Unless
correct.
such action meets or exceeds any of the thresholds under type 1 actions, but that's all like over 25 acres or over
Right.
this this isn't nearly anything of that magnitude. So I agree it's a type 2, and once it's a type 2, it's not even subject to any further review under seeker,
So,
so you don't even have to take a resolution that there is going to be no
We just need to
significant-
declare it's a type 2.
You just need to make a declaration that it's a
Right.
type 2 action, and from there, you're done.
All right. I'll make the declaration that this is a type 2 action. Questions?
If they were putting the culvert somewhere else,
Right.
like
Or
moving
moving
somewhere,
it down or making it bigger.
that would be different.
Right.
But simply replacing it in kind is
Right.
type 2.
So the next is the resolution for the mayor to sign the community development block grant for the Main Street culvert replacement of Phase 2. I believe it's up on the screen. Is it in there? Sorry, Jake. I'll slow down.
It's the standard
Right.
contract they use for these grants. They're all the same. They've been the same for the last several years.
Any questions? All right, so I'll entertain a motion and a second to allow the mayor to sign the community development block grant.
I will make that motion.
I'll second it.
You mean you're not going to read it?
Page 6
No.
somewhere that we should.
Trustee Byard,
Aye.
Trustee Lancy,
Aye.
Mayor Cahill.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Where's the signature page?
Yeah, that's what we just mentioned. That Will must have forgot.
Not.
There must be a page 6, that
Yeah.
he didn't,
All right,
he didn't copy, but I'm sure he's got it.
okay. Was that if you could have, I will share that with the group, that'd be great. Don?
Oh, I have nothing to add this evening. I think we've had enough.
Fun and frivolity. Yes.
All right, next we have comp and overtime report. Rosette, you're up.
Before I get to that, I just want to say something.
Okay.
I just want to say that yesterday we had a really nice Veterans Day lunch here in this room, and it really turned out beautiful. And I just wanted to thank the volunteers and the employees that made it such a great event. The food was fantastic, and I'd like to thank Greg Cody of Bremont Bistro for cooking and doing all his wonderful chef work over there. We had Trustee Byards and his granddaughter Chloe, who helped, and Jake Swingley helped with his wife Ann and his 2 sons Evan and Kyle, and they also brought a friend, Owen Flowerday. And then we also had Will Barham helped, and Christina Lysak and her nephew Evan, and also Joe O'Neill. And I just really want to thank them for all the work that they did and for just pulling off a great event. Thank you. So,
I echo those sentiments, and I also want to thank you, Josette, for coordinating that event. I wasn't able to attend this year, and it is, as I've echoed to a number of people today, is probably one of the event I look forward to the most. Last year was phenomenal, and to have an opportunity to actually thank our veterans for their sacrifice at a luncheon, and it is so very rewarding. You just walk away from that place, and you're just, you're so fulfilled, and they, not just the veterans, but their families, their loved ones, sacrifice so much for this country, and at times people take them for granted, and so I also thank everybody that came and that participated and helped out with that event. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So,
Now we're going to talk about overtime.
yeah. Jake, did you have a chance to review?
Yes, everything looked good on this report.
You did what?
I reviewed and it looked good, this report. Okay.
So now, there were some budget transfers and modifications.
Yep. So let's talk about these for a second. Because I did have a question, but we'll get that in a second. So we're transferring $300 from the NICOM budget line to dues and conferences. And the reason is the zoning dues conference line did not previously exist. Individuals have been attending class and thus need to create a line and appropriate accordingly. I thought we had conferences,
We
a
do,
budget
but
line for
we must not have
conferences.
had them for zoning.
For zoning.
Is
Yeah, but it-
Christina trying to
Just cleaning it.
put those out to,
Separate them.
Yeah.
But why though? I'm
I
just,
think she's probably trying to break out, like, all the costs for the planning board, all the costs for the zoning board,
okay.
all the costs
Yeah.
for the historic preservation commission,
Smart.
you know.
Yeah,
there's
I
like a
understand.
small
I
thing.
just-
That's good.
Typically, she'll send me an email and explain that. I didn't know whether you had a conversation as deputy treasurer with her as to why she was doing that. No?
No, she just wants to keep everything separate like that.
That's what, she
Well,
told
that's
you.
a reason.
She-
That's a good
did-
reason.
Yeah,
Well, I
that's-
don't, that's fine, but did she tell you that? Is that what she told you?
No,
So, all
but
right.
that is what's happening.
Okay, the next one is, we're moving $1,150 from the NICOM account to 0102-162400 water. And water cost was higher this quarter, mainly due to the DOT. So my question is, if you take this $1,150 out of the NICOM account and you move it, what are you gonna pay for the NICOM dues with? Where's that money gonna come from?
How much was budgeted in that line? Was more than 1,000, well, there must have
It's
been more
typically
than.
what
I'd
the,
have to
it's,
go
it's,
back
it's
and
shortly,
You'd have to
it's,
go back and
it,
look at
it's a little
That's
bit more than the
Christina's.
dues are normally.
she obviously feels that it's going to work, so.
Well, I don't have a problem with that, I just wanna know where you're gonna pay for the Nikon with. That's the only question I have.
Probably gotta ask the treasurer these questions.
I would think
Yep.
so.
Well,
I think so too.
then she needs to start coming to these meetings if we can't get answers to these questions then.
What was, because she's transferred, the $300 too, so there must have been more than $1,450 in that account.
I don't believe that the Nikon account amount, if we take that $1,150 out of there, we'll leave enough for this year's dues. That's why I'm having this question right now.
We got the budget.
I don't have it on my bag, just get update.
I just don't feel like carrying that.
What are the, I'm curious if the NICOM conferences are in that NICOM line, so, and if we didn't attend a NICOM conference, if that's why the
That's probably,
lines
that's it.
might be high, but I'm just trying to pull up.
Where's it, well,
All right, let's just,
don't approve the transfer.
I'm not gonna approve
until
the
you get answer.
transfers. I'm not, no. And the next would be electrical maintenance repair, $5,145.90 going to sewage treatment equipment. And that was for the repair of the digester for Blue Heron Construction. So we have to put this on the next meeting's agenda, Josette, until
Okay.
we can get some answers.
Okay.
And either, I would suggest going forward on these transfers, if you could have a conversation with Christina prior to the meeting, or ask Christina to come to the meeting in the event that there's any questions, so we can get this done in a timely manner. I'd appreciate it. All right, Jake, how are you?
I am lovely.
Regarding the leaves,
Leaves
I
are,
want to say thank you to your guys. They worked and continue to work extremely hard in the, with the leaves. And as I spoke to you earlier this week, I have never had as many leaves out by the road in the 5 years I've lived here, within 2 weeks, ever.
there is,
And we have a tree out back, it's a certain type of oak tree that never drops, in 5 years has not dropped its leaves until April. When the new buds start to come out, that's when the leaves drop. This year,
This year, they're all down.
they're all down. And you guys have done a phenomenal job on that. And I appreciate them coming in yesterday, the crew that did come in, I appreciate that. So make sure you, please, convey my, appreciation and thanks to the guys down there. They're doing a great job.
no, absolutely.
Especially in their wet.
Oh,
Holy there's nothing worse than raking wet leaves, and I think everybody can attest to that.
the only thing worse would be frozen leaves, which is what we're trying to avoid.
Well-
And what you worked in last year.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, that's,
We got
we
pictures on
finished,
the website of that.
we finished last year, I think, an hour before the snow started.
Right.
So it was, we just got it done, we finished up the run, but, no, they're, a little more than halfway through the run for this week, because, they were able to come in yesterday. Hopefully, before the end of tomorrow, they're gonna be done with a run. That's gonna be pressing it.
Yep.
They're certainly gonna try to do that, especially with the winds and things that are coming, and before they get spread around again. And then, hopefully, we'll, be in pretty good shape next week. We should be able to get the run done,
Right.
faster, because I hope, they've got to end sometime, so they're
almost
but there's certainly a lot of them out there now. But that was gonna be, the only thing I really had was, two things. I'm sorry. This leaf
It's
pickup,
always the second one that kills us.
the leaf
It's
pickup,
always the second one.
because the second one usually reminds me of a third one and a
Yeah, I
fourth
know.
one. But the leaf pickup is said it does continue. Just want to encourage everybody. It looks like a pretty decent weekend. So if they can get them out to the street, the guys won't be happy with me saying it, but they really will, to be able to get them done.
Right.
We can get them out. And when I say to the street, to the edge of the street, off the street, so that when we get monsoons like we had real briefly this afternoon, that the water still flows and doesn't create any issues. The New York State DOT project is wrapping up along Main Street and North and South Avenue. As that work continues, there's fewer and fewer people there, fewer and fewer signs. One of the things they're doing now is replacing the street signs, and to save a lot of calls, I have been in touch with the DOT, because we don't have Kircher Drive or Baker Avenue. Lapham Drive, I believe it was, in Sanford Avenue. And they're
How do you spell
aware
Phillips Road?
incorrectly. Usually, I spell things, I'm very bad at spelling, but did they spell Phillips Road wrong too?
Oh, yeah, on the great big exit sign.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Oh, earlier in the year?
Early
Okay.
year.
That's an early-
okay. So I've contacted them, basically the check sheets were bad, and they made new signs, so they're making new signs. And I'm, obviously continue to watch that, and, as we go there.
Josette, he doesn't need any help with more things to talk about.
And,
I see the notes getting passed over there.
There actually was one, but it's been squared away. We had a resident stop in, and it was nice enough to tell us that one of the sign placements would have made it very difficult to plow the sidewalk and frankly even walk down the sidewalk. It got put right in the middle of the sidewalk.
No way.
So I took a picture of it for the award ceremony at the end of the year and forwarded it along, and it was moved that afternoon. But so
Speaking of sign placements, on the north side of Main Street, in front of Carl's place, we got to talk about those two speed signs.
Oh.
Yeah, one of them is right where a tree's going to be planted, and there was never a sign there before. But to that end, with respect to the entire project and the DOT, I am extremely impressed with this project, the manner it was conducted, with the DOT personnel, their professionalism. They opened up this we opened up this community room, and the DOT personnel essentially spent the day here. They had two tables put together, probably 10 foot long. One map showed all of South Avenue, the other all of 404. The projected, the plan changes. We had, a meeting in the afternoon, one in the evening. A lot of residents showed up and were afforded the opportunity to give suggestions on things that were proposed. There were many suggestions made. There were changes that the DOT made. And they did a lot of work in this village this summer, a lot of work. It wasn't just milling and paving. They put in sidewalks, new gutters, and mill and paved all of Main Street, all of North and South Avenue, and the difference is amazing. I know it was frustrating for people. I commend our businesses and I commend our residents and visitors for their patience during, it was a long summer for construction. It was a very long summer. I think that overall the contractor they hired did a great job. I'm very satisfied with the work that was done, and a lot of curveballs were thrown at them during the project, and they worked with us, and I think it went very well. But the thing that really impressed me the most was the DOT and their professionalism and their openness to come in and solicit suggestions from the public. Because you know how you always hear they won't, the DOT just shows up and they do what they want to do. Well, that's not my experience. Not once did I ever have a phone call not returned, okay? And they asked all sorts of questions. They did a phenomenal job. So I'm very impressed, and I'm sure you would echo those sentiments.
Absolutely. I joke about the signs. Honestly, if that's the worst thing that happens to us, we're really blessed.
Yeah.
They were very responsive, the contractor and the DOT, to concerns the whole time.
Yeah.
Any project, especially any project of that magnitude, little things are gonna happen.
Right.
Frankly, a lot of times, big things are gonna happen. We really didn't see a lot of that. And any issues that came up, there was great communication the whole time. There was great cooperation. It reminds me of one of the questions we had either the last board meeting or a couple ago was in regards to the water usage by the DOT, and I did confirm with the contractor that there is a reduction. There was a credit
Right.
given for not having to purchase water.
Right.
So our residents, with great question, our residents do not have to pay for the water twice.
Right.
It was, water that was used in our community here, and they did not charge the DOT for it. Reminds me also, there's a question, Trustee Byers had a question in regards to the gas bill, the fuel bill from the school. That was a very good question. And fortunately or unfortunately, I guess the village is gonna see a credit of a little over $3,000. Bad part is, I guess we discovered a flaw in our system or my system. When I reviewed the bill, I typically look at the time and at the amount of gas that was purchased. I guess nowadays you have to prepay everything on a credit card. I sadly don't really know what gas is for when I buy it for my own truck, because I need it, so I get it. And I usually don't want to know because it's pretty sad. But they had not adjusted, when somebody new started at school, they weren't adjusting the gas prices for every delivery. So Trustee Byers, when he was looking at the bills, he noted that it seemed a little high, and it was a little high. I went back and reviewed it and looked back to 2011 and saw it, and they got, like I said, it was about $3,000, a little over $3,000, I think, that we're gonna end up seeing a credit for.
What about interest?
Thank you, sir.
What's that?
What about interest?
Well, I think 3,000 is good, because there was times when they didn't adjust it and we paid a lot less than they got for it. And then there's times when we paid a lot more than we should have. So it was a great question. It's just a testament to why we have these checks and balances and these processes in place to review them. And it's a good eye opener that there's another step. The bills are looked at, and then we look at them, and like I said, I review them. I'll pull the truck sheets. Yep, they got 30 gallons that day at 20. Yep, the gallons all make sense, and the times make sense, and no one came in at 2 o'clock Sunday afternoon and got it when we weren't in here working, so everything's good. So no, that should be showing up too. And part of the discussion we had there is we're going to try to get together think we sent out the agreement, or Christine did, sent out the agreement to everybody to review. They're looking at updating that because it was just an automatic renewal thing.
Right.
So we want to have that reviewed, and I think they also want to look at the other agreements that we have with them in regards to, the other intermunicipal agreement we have with the school district. And that. So,
Yep.
Point of reference, the NICOM line for this year is $2,850. I do not know what the dues are, but these
Okay.
combining together, $1,450 leaves $1,400 in that account. And I don't know what the NICOM dues are.
Well, hopefully by the next
But-
meeting, we'll have that information.
But we should hopefully know.
Anybody else have anything this evening? We can talk after, Peter.
I just wanted to see, he usually does announcements, but I just wanted to thank you, the village, for its help with the trick or treat trail.
You're welcome. You got anything else?
I do, before we leave. This Saturday, November 15th, the Webster Museum at 18 Lapham Park will honor veterans with an open house from 2 to 4. I believe that Chuck Bayless, Executive Director of the Military Museum, will bring the Norden bomb sight and explain the importance of this technology before computers to World War II. And he will identify the museum rifles that are there. And so from 2 to 4, this Saturday, Webster Museum. Could be an interesting bit of history.
Thank you.
for veterans.
Nobody has anything else? I'll entertain a motion, a second, to close the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
All in favor?
No.
Aye.
Motion granted.
Did he say that?
I didn't say aye.
I didn't say that.
Pass.
So it's 1 to 2, we're still here.
All right, aye.
There you go, 2 to 1.
Done.
Nay.
Trustee Byer said nay, by the way. Make sure that's on the record.
To end the,
His coffee.
one,
He's
but
not done with
majority
his,
rule,
he's not
because
done with
it's
his
a
coffee yet.